Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to our Entrepreneurs Being More for Wednesday, March 9th of 2022. We're continuing our exploration of the idea of specific results in our Nikken business in three areas: income, influence, and community. And we're starting with the initial area, the first area that we've spent some time on now, the idea of income and getting clear about what it is we're looking for in terms of results in this specific area. And we've had a fantastic guide to help us get clear about this and about deciding what it is we want to create and achieve and how it is that we'll best go about doing that, or how we can do that effectively. So we've been looking at specifics in terms of results, and we've also been looking at strategies, those practical kinds of approaches, ideas, and skills that can make those results happen. So over the past few times, we've been spending some time looking at the idea of inviting and finding, and what it is specifically that we might be inviting people to or finding people for in terms of the process of finding customers, finding consultants, building a network of customers, building a team. And Ben did an amazing job last time with some really insightful ideas into inviting and doing it in a way where you're making sure that you are investing time into what might be one shot at really making a good first impression and making sure that you're inviting in a way that you're going to get results, that you'll have people making commitments and agreeing to exploring or investigating further. So Ben is back with us again to help us continue looking at this idea and specifics of what it is we're inviting people to, the kinds of event or presentation or information material that we're inviting people to take a look at or be a part of. Ben, we're excited to have you back with us again tonight.
Here we go. Schoolboy era there. Thank you. Good to be with you all again.
You didn't have to dress up just for us.
I know. I look very overdressed tonight, don't I?
So, you look fantastic.
Thank you. I have a meeting right after this call, so I'm preparing in advance for that one, so I can go from one to the other. So yeah, thank you, Jeff. And we are carrying on today from what we talked about last week, where we spoke specifically about the skills around inviting, how to invite effectively, not simply just throw out an invitation, but how to do it effectively and to help specifically help people make and keep commitments. And we talked, of course, about the role of follow-up in that process too. Today, we're going to carry on with that theme and go a little deeper into what are we asking people to do and what, and I'm going to give three examples. I want to talk about inviting people to watch or read or listen to a piece of media. So that media might be a video clip, it might be a podcast. I know Julie Tara, for example, has just launched a new podcast with Nikken. So that's a tool that we can use to invite people to engage with us and participate. It might be something that we invite them to read. Maybe there's a particular book that opens someone's mindset to the concept of entrepreneurship, business ownership, striving for something different, becoming more, or what have you, so that they start to see perhaps some of the challenges that they face, but some of the opportunities that are available to overcome them. Yeah. So that is often something that's very important, getting people in that right frame of mind so that they come down the road to a yes to the business opportunity. So first we're going to talk about that. Then we're going to talk about how to invite someone to a webinar or a virtual event. Okay, we have weekly webinars that take place with our schedule of events throughout the week in Nikken. and they cover a broad base of subjects. We've got leadership training, we've got business skills, we've got the Better Way presentation, which is essentially a well-prepared in advance ABC that we can tap into. And of course, we've also got the monthly events that are co-hosted with Nikken, such as the Seiko Kai or the Master Day events. Those are also things that we can invite people to give them a look at what we're doing. The last thing I want to talk about is inviting people to ABCs. I have found when I conduct ABCs, and I don't believe that it's a Ben Woodward statistic, yeah, in the sense of it's relative to me only. I think this is the nature of ABCs. Most people that I have an ABC with do end up joining the business. Yeah. Now, there's a reason for that, and that is often because what has preceded it have been these other invitations. Yeah, the ABC is more towards the closing end of the deal than the starting process. Okay, so as I jump into that, I want to just take 2 minutes just to give some context to the process that most people that are within a sales environment, and I am using that term sales deliberately because this is a sales environment that we're in here, what a lot of people experience and go through conventionally. And the reason I want to share these statistics and this little bit of data with you is because what it does is it helps us get context, one, to the work that precedes the invitation, two, our expectations around certain invitations, and three, what our experience is in contrast or comparison to the rank and file that are doing this as well. Yeah. Sometimes we can get discouraged when we're extending invitations and getting no's and feel like we are doing something hugely wrong when perhaps we're doing it exactly right. It's just part of the process. Yeah. So I want to give that context because that can be wonderfully reassuring to us and encouraging when we get a little bit of the perspective on what people experience when they're out there inviting and extending invitations as well. So like I said, I just want to take a couple of minutes on this to give context and a little bit of framework to some of the specifics that we'll jump into. So here are some interesting statistics that are around the sales environment universally as an industry. And we, of course, fall well into that framework. Half of the prospects that you meet are not the right match for your product or service. That's interesting, isn't it? Approximately 1 in 2, 50% of your prospects may not be a right match. Now, why do I share that? Well, because sometimes we can spend so much time and energy chasing the wrong person that we don't invest the time and energy in the right ones. Yeah. So it's really important to get that perspective and go, okay, where is my invitation going to be directed? And there is a sifting process, which is why we're focusing on 3 specific invites tonight, because we'll get to that bit later on. There are a number of contacts that we have, invitations that are extended before someone actually gives us the yes that we seek. Okay, so let's keep that in mind. First of all, about half of the people that we meet may not actually be a right match for our product or our service. Over 70% of prospective customers like to hear from salespeople early on in their buying process. Sometimes we think that they don't want that. Actually, they do want that engagement. Okay, over 70% said that. Okay, this is interesting. 96% of buyers claim that sellers who focus on the value they can deliver will influence their purchasing decision. Okay, now that statistic bears relevance to what we're talking about tonight, because if 96% say they are influenced by value, what do we need to include in our invitations? Value. Value to the person, not to us, but to them. We want to make sure that what we're offering meets their needs. To that end, sometimes people say, do you have a script that you use? Do you have set videos that you share, a list, a library? I do have a library of videos that I like to use as I share. I do have certain books that I like to hand out and get people to read. I do have podcasts I like people to listen to. And of course, there are the meetings that Nikken hosts, which are a given that we want people to participate in. But which one I pick for who really depends on what that person's need is. So to begin the process, when I'm extending an invitation to read, engage with, watch, or listen to a piece of media, then what needs to precede that invitation? What needs to precede it is some time that we devote to asking questions. What we need to do is build a relationship with the people that we're talking to so that we understand what their needs are, what their concerns are, what their problems are, so that we can find the right piece of media to meet their needs. It's not simply about inviting them to watch a video, to listen to a podcast, or to read a book, right? Because it's not the process that matters. What matters is what you gave them. Is the content relevant to the individual you're talking to? That is what's really important. I do find giving a piece of media as a starting point is one of the strong touch points in the process of getting people to a final yes. Okay. We don't begin with an ABC, and we don't begin our invitations with an invite to join the business. I had a team member in Canada it's March now, isn't it? So late last year, that got this great mailing list. He went on a course. As a part of the course, he got access to this mailing list. He thought, this is great. Now I'm really going to make the money. He got all excited, and he reached out and he invited everyone on the mailing list in his first email to join the Nikken business and partner up with him. And then he was surprised as to why he didn't get much of a favorable response. It's like, well, you went straight for the jugular, didn't you? You went straight for the kill. That's not how it works. We need to build rapport and relationships, and, for want of a better phrase, warm our market before we warn our market. Yeah. So we want to warm them first and build that relationship. And the way that we do that is by finding out their needs, finding out what problems they face, what needs they have that they want to have met, and then look for ways to fill the gap. And like I said, 96% of people that choose to purchase or engage or say yes, say that they are influenced by the value add that the person gave them in that process. Yeah. So understanding that need, then connecting the piece of media that is best suited for that need is what makes the difference. Content is king. Yeah. So make sure that you give them kingly content. That'll make all the difference. And that begins, like I said, by asking the right questions first. Who are they? What are their needs? What are their struggles? What are their challenges? What are they looking for? What are their hopes and aspirations, dreams, and so on? As you start to build that profile, then when it comes to the inviting stage, you can give a more personalized and more tailored invite that meets the need of that person specifically. And what happens when that takes place? Well, the chances for engagement and accepting the invitation go up. So if you want to have a positive response, make it personal, make it count. Okay. So let's go on with a couple more of these statistics, because they do fit, like I said, in the process. Only 15% of potential customers are satisfied with their experience over the phone. That's interesting, isn't it? So when we're interacting with people on the phone, we really need to improve our performance in making sure that we meet their needs. It says here 33% of customers expect to resolve a problem with a single interaction, right? So that might be existing customers, but what that's saying is our customers in today's climate have high expectations. They have high demands, high needs. And so we do need to make sure, if we are engaging in the phone, using the telephone, that we engage in a way that is meaningful and that meets their needs as quickly as possible. Again, the way to do that is to ask lots of questions. Seek first to understand and then to be understood. Okay, so communication isn't simply about delivering your invite, extending the message, extending the call to action. It's about first finding out what are their needs, what are their feelings, what are their challenges, what are their struggles, and then customizing it accordingly. Yeah. So, like I said, straight out the gate, one of my first invitations where I've built a little bit of rapport and a bit of relationship. I'm getting those touch points established. I'm finding out what their needs are, finding out what their challenges are. One of the first invitations that I extend is an invitation to watch, listen to, or read some type of media. Okay. And that really prepares them for the next step. I do see this as a journey. It's a process, because we know that it takes between 5 and 12 contacts with a potential customer or business partner before they get to a yes. Okay, so that being the case, we're not jumping straight at the final commitment where we want them to join the business or buy a product. We're kind of building that rapport and that relationship, aren't we? Even if we go into a store, for example, as consumers ourselves, if I go into a shopping mall and I go into a store, typically I'm buying from brands that I'm familiar with. How did I get familiar with them? Maybe I saw them on television. I've seen them in magazines or what have you. Wherever it is, I'm seeing them bouncing around somewhere online or on television. And those are little touch points that make me more familiar with them. And as I'm more familiar, I'm more comfortable. And if I'm more comfortable, I'm more inclined to say yes. Okay, so we want to really spend the time in building the relationships. This is, if there's anything that you're going to get tonight, it's the importance of establishing relationships in the invitation process. And please note that I'm using that language deliberately, the invitation process. Invitations are not simply an event. It's not just a moment. It's a part of a journey, part of a cycle that you take people through. And that is all being built upon relationship building at one relationship building moment at a time. Okay. So let's move on. LinkedIn, this is interesting, is being used by more than 55% of business to business buyers to support their decisions. Now, what does that mean? Maybe not your customers, but when it comes time to inviting people to show the next one, the next invitation, outside of showing them media or inviting them to watch or listen to or engage with media, now you're moving on and you're inviting them to participate in a meeting. There is business discussion afoot. Yeah, and you're perhaps maybe leading them towards an ABC. When you start to get into that space, it's interesting to note that if someone's going to start making business decisions, they're going to want to verify you and vet you just a little bit, aren't they? We do that all the time. How many times at a basic level do you go on Netflix, look to pick a movie to watch or a new TV show, and then look at the star rating before you hit yes? I'll watch it. And you go, oh, that's only got 2 stars. I think I'll give that one a miss. It looked good until you saw the star rating. Yeah. And we do that all the time. Yeah. When I was an employer, I found it wonderfully easy to vet my interviewees before I interviewed them, not just by reading their CVs, but by Googling them. I would go online and I would social media stalk them for a little bit. Yeah. And check them out. I would want to know, how do they represent themselves on social media? Do they look professional? Do they look smart? Are they representing themselves well, or are they making fools of themselves like many people do online? Yeah, that becomes an important part of the process. So again, a part of your invitation process, as we now navigate not just towards showing media or inviting people to watch or listen to something for the sake of buying a product. Now we're making a step forward. Now we're engaging in the business. We're inviting them now to come along and listen using those skills that we outlined last week. Now we're asking them to listen or participate in a webinar, maybe a monthly event with Nikken that's talking about the business, giving them a chance to consider their own home-based business. Maybe we're inviting them now to an ABC where we're partnering up with our upline and getting them to do the talking. But what are they going to do first? When they jump online, they're going to want to say, oh, let's check you out a little bit. They're going to go to your social media accounts. They're going to check you out on Facebook. They might check you out on Instagram if you're there. They'll certainly check you out on LinkedIn if you're there. What does your profile look like? If you want to give yourself a leg up and strengthen the invitation, one, if we summarize what we've talked about so far, you want to make sure that you're connecting with the people's individual needs and concerns, and you're filling a gap. You're looking to solve problems. You're building relationships. We're using collaborative language. We're using the words we instead of the word I. You're giving them media that meets their needs, and you're seeing it as a part of a process versus a single event that's going to lead them after they've done that. Now that you've watched that, will you join Nikken? No, is going to be the answer most typically. Okay, so we're going to go to the next step. The next step is now inviting them to engage in an event or a seminar or participate in an ABC. But in that process, if we want to strengthen our results, then let's brush up our social media accounts and make them look professional. Do you have, for example, I have a personal Facebook account that I share with my wife, and that's not a business account. That's for family and friends, and I keep that separate. And I post all sorts of stuff there that's related to my family and friends. My family's in England, they're in Australia, they're in New Zealand, they're all spread out, and that's a great way for me to connect with them. And I send all sorts of messages there. But I have a Nikken account, and I also have within my Nikken specific Facebook account, I have Facebook pages that I've set up that are for specific groups that have a target audience. And that gives me the chance to be professional, to have business messages and so on, and represent what I'm about in a professional way. My LinkedIn account, I take a different approach with my LinkedIn account, and I have different ways of representing myself as a professional, not just in network marketing, but a business professional, someone that they can look to as an expert or an authority on particular subjects. So that when they look at my professional LinkedIn account, what they see there is here's someone that's credible, professional, experienced, polished, and credible. As a result, when they jump on to do an ABC with me, when they jump on and they want to vet me before they say yes, or before they jump on a webinar, for example, they've got a little bit of background on me, but it represents me well. Okay, but I know that at least 56% of people that I talk to and invite into a business environment are going to check me out online first. Okay, so that with that in mind, I want to strengthen that invitation by making that area of my business polished. So my invitation to you right now is, what do your social media accounts look like? Are they professional? Are they polished? Now, keep in mind, professional does not mean everything I post is all about Nikken. That's the last thing you want to do. It's the last thing you want to do. What you want to do is use that as a platform that helps them come to connect with you as a person as well. You can talk about, you can have your Facebook pages that specialize on particular subjects, you know, for your target audiences. But if you're talking about business in general, you want to filter that or balance that with personal messages too. So you want to have family pictures and pictures about what you're doing and stories that you find funny or what have you involved in that to balance it out so it's not so business heavy, because it is, after all, social media. Yeah, it is social after all, and people go there for a social experience. So you want to get that balance right. So keep that in mind as a part of your, and this is something that we don't often think about, but it is a part of the invitation process when it comes to inviting people to engage in business activities. Because, and the reason that's something we don't think about is because it happens behind the scenes. That little bit of vetting, that little bit of Google search, you know, oh, Michelle just asked me to do something. I'm going to quickly Google search her. Who is Michelle? What's she all about? Yeah, what is Dawn Marie really interested in? I'm going to have a quick look. Oh, she seems to know what she's talking about. I like what she's saying here. And you can have a whole host of contacts, recognizing 5 to 12 contacts before someone says yes. You can have a whole host of interactions and contacts in that space that will facilitate and support and strengthen those final invitations. Yeah, so recognize that it's integrated into your invitation process, and it will happen when you're not looking. That's the nature of the world we live in now. That's kind of frightening, isn't it? But really, really important. Michelle just made an interesting comment. Let's read what she says here. Most employers check social media before hiring employees. It's true. It's really true. Yeah, that happens nowadays. I'm so glad that I grew up before social media was invented. You know, I look at what some of the teenagers are posting nowadays, and I go, my goodness, you know, it is insane what is going online. And their future selves are going to get to see that later on when they've grown up a little bit. Eek. Okay, so recognize that as a part of the framework of your business activity. When you're inviting someone to an ABC, when you're inviting them into an event, recognize the power of social media as your ally and use that to your advantage. Okay. Let me scale down, move down here on my list of the average salesperson. This is interesting, makes 52 calls on a daily basis. Now that's obviously a full-time salesperson, yeah? But I shared that with deliberate intent. How many calls lead to how many invites? How many invites lead to conversion where people are taking action? Okay, there is a funnel that we're going through here, but how many people are you calling on a daily basis? If we're only calling half a dozen every other day, how many invites does that relate to by the end of the week? Now, how many invites do people get before they say yes? It's been shown, I'm going to pull this statistic up because this is interesting. 44% of salespeople drop the prospect after a single follow-up call. That's interesting, isn't it? Yet, according to statistics, 60% of people that buy say no 4 times before they say yes. 60%. So let's give this context. If you're wanting to get to yes, you've got to get 4 no's first on 60% of your sales. That means how many contacts are you making on a daily basis that will give you the chance to get through those no's? Yeah, we've got to see those no's to the invitations as a part of our journey. So as we talk about being more effective in our invites, as we look at different things that we invite people to participate in and to engage with, we need to anticipate and know that 1, half the people we talk to will not be a natural fit. That's okay. Of those that we do talk to, now that we can focus and prioritize, we need to build relationships, build rapport, customize their needs. And even when we do, they might say no 4 times before they get to a yes. The average person might quit and stop asking long before that 4th no comes along. So the key here is in our inviting to be persistent, not in a bullish, aggressive, salesy, over self-indulgent kind of way, but in a way where we're building relationships, where they say no now, but we know that no now is not no forever, and that's okay, that it doesn't spoil friendships, that we stay in touch afterwards, and it's always good when we invite someone to do something, when they do say no, to have some type of follow-up visit shortly thereafter to help them be assured that the relationship isn't damaged. Yeah. Sometimes we go, oh, I'm afraid that they'll say no. And if they say no, that might damage my relationship with them. And so we step back and we drop the case and we let them go. What we need to do is realize that no does not damage the relationship. And to strengthen it and to come out stronger as a result of the no, we have to follow up soon to let them know we love them and to let them know that the relationship is okay. And so that can be a great way of strengthening, fortifying, and building, and also preparing you for the next interaction where they might say no again, and maybe even a 3rd time. And then you get there to where they are a little bit more interested because you get the timing right, you get the balance right, you get the message right. And then sometimes it just seems to be synergy, doesn't it? Where you go, it wasn't right this time last year, but right now, my circumstances have changed, my needs are ready to be fulfilled and met, and I'm ready to take this to the next level. Yeah. So it's really important in this process of inviting that we see the long-term picture of what we're involved in here, that it's about building relationships, that this takes time, that there is a space between critical activity number 1, adding someone to my contact list, and 2, inviting them to make a commitment, and 3, inviting them to participate in a presentation or an ABC, that there is space in between these steps called relationship building, nurturing, feeding, supporting, developing rapport, and so on, that needs to happen. And we do that over and over again. Okay. So one last point, and then we'll kind of wrap up on this. How many calls should a salesperson make a day if they want to be really effective? It depends what your goals are. Statistics here say 60 calls a day. Now that would be full-time. That would be full-time business building activity right there. But I'll tell you what, if you really want to get the strong yeses, if you want to have the strong business building results, if you want to get your check to where you want it to be, it does begin with making those calls first and having those contacts. So building your contact list and then making those calls and doing it robustly is a real demonstration of our commitment to our vision, to our dream, to our business. If we're not doing that, if we're speaking to just a couple of people a day, I want to assure you that is not enough. Because the reality is, for every business in every industry, there is fallout. There is a retention factor. There is a dropout. There is what industries wide refer to as a revolving door, where people come in and people go out. People join and then people stop and leave. People buy a product and then they go somewhere else. Someone else grabs their attention. There is that revolving door. If we're only talking to a couple of people a day, every now and then, we're not quite building enough business to replace the business that we're losing. Yeah. So we've got to keep that in mind. There will be a natural rate of attrition in our business. And if we want to fill that and build upon it, we need to be talking to a lot of people on a regular basis. And like I said, we need to recognize that in that process, that there is a lot of points of contact, a lot of reasons for people to say no, and a lot of reasons for people to say yes. They will increase their response to you positively when you replace the word I with the word we. When we are meeting a need, when we are solving a problem, when we are working together, when we use collaborative language, then people will react and respond favorably with you. Okay? So in conclusion, one of the starting points for extending invitations is to invite people to engage with some type of media. We can do that in email, we can do that in text, we can do that in a chat, we can do that informally, and that works wonderful. That type of invitation is far more informal and casual in nature and conversational in its style than the other invitations, such as participating in a business meeting, virtually or in person, or inviting someone to join an ABC. That starts to get a little bit more formal. And as we go through that process of building on relationships of trust, building on their needs, looking for solutions that we can fit and resolve and solve and provide better outcomes for, then we'll start to go to the next level and the next stage. And as we do that, they get more serious and they start to look into us. And parts of our process in inviting happen without us, when they start to vet us with social media and start to go online and check us out. So my invitation to you today is use collaborative language, be casual, relaxed, and informal as you build your relationships of trust and extending those invitations to engage with media of all sorts of different kinds and types. Customize what media you give them according to their needs. Then, as they go through the process, recognizing that you'll get at least 4 no's on 60% of your people before you get to a yes, be okay with that, be persistent, follow up quickly when someone says no, so that you can maintain the relationship, let them know that it's not spoiled, let them know that you still love them and like them, and that it's not all about that moment, that it's about something much bigger and better, and continue on the process and the journey with them. Then make sure that you polish your social media accounts and make them look professional. Delete the things that's rubbish, get them off, create professional accounts, brand it, make it look sharp, make it look professional. Have a look at my social media as an example, my LinkedIn profile. If you want to check out what a professional LinkedIn account might look like, that might give you an example of how I branded it and customized it to me to meet my needs. okay, and to meet the needs of those I contact in that space. So I hope that helps. Again, use that collaborative language, engage regularly, consistently, persistently, and look at those 3 key areas: media, webinars and company events, and ABCs. And the ABC is the last in the process, because that really helps to close the deal and get people to that final yes, and utilize that collaborative experience to do that, and you'll get a better outcome. So Jeff, I'm sorry I went 6 minutes over, but I'll pass the time back to you to wrap up.
Ben, thank you. Great information again. This is such an important component of helping people to make that decision to take a look at what it is we have to offer, and to make sure that we do it as effectively, as you mentioned, as possible. Next time, I believe we're going to be looking at the idea of what happens next. When people have engaged with the presentation or the material, what's the follow-up, and how is that best done? And then what is the process of helping them move to making the decision to become a customer or to become a consultant, moving to that next step. So Ben, I believe you'll be joining us next week.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Fantastic. So thank you everyone for joining us tonight. As I mentioned, the Zooms of all our previous meetings with Ben will be up ASAP. We'll have those for you to use and for your team to use as well, as they work on this process of getting clear about the results they're looking for. So thank you everybody for joining us this evening. We'll see everyone next week. Enjoy the rest of your week, everyone. Thanks again, Ben.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Jeff. Thanks, everyone.